Hello, everyone. So we had the third Democratic debate last night. I didn't cover the second one when it happened because it didn't ultimately feel that significant to me. There were some good moments, and I'm going to get to those. But even with this third debate last night, um, it was a little bit of a letdown, and I think Bernie did pretty good, as I'll get into. But overall, the experience is such a letdown to me because it's not serious, and it's exactly what I was afraid of happening. This like clown show primary, which we had with the GOP in 2016, and now the Democrats are really looking like a reality TV show up there, and it's not. The problem is that they aren't doing what they need to do to win as a party as a whole. I see Bernie with the right messaging and is the right strategy. He wants to raise or start a movement of people, which he's already kind of started, and he's just trying to kind of mobilize the American people to get the change really implemented. But you see that with Warren a little bit, like she's good on the messaging at times too, and she knows what to say. Um, but she's like she's clearly second best to Bernie in my view, and we'll get into more specifics why I have problems with her. But with the second debate, it was largely a Bernie and Warren tag team against all the centrists, and John Delaney is kind of like the ringleader of the centrists. He was not in the third debate. Thank the Lord, because like he's such an ass. I mean, like he's really so he's like the Bernie Sanders for the corporate elite, honestly, because he's like just this loud, obnoxious guy, and he's like I'm running on real solutions, not impossible promises, and like the math doesn't add up, and it's like, dude, you were a businessman, you were in the healthcare industry, as Bernie Sanders pointed out, and it's like you're you're playing for their side, the corporate elite side, and it's like you're acting like you have all the answers and like the data doesn't matter at all, and the fact that every other country has some form of universal healthcare, single payer healthcare. um but he's just like he's so over the top with his performance, and just like he's shouting, and that's why I said like the Bernie Sanders of the corporate elite. That seems kind of fitting, just because like he's their loud mascot boy. um but that was kind of the dynamic at play with the second debate. Bernie was saying he's tired of Democrats being afraid of big ideas, and I think he made a great point with that, because he was basically saying, like don't pretend like the Republicans don't have big ideas, and basically what he's saying is they're ruthless in trying to get their agenda implemented. The Republicans will stop at nothing to do that, to do what to pass the tax cuts, and they did that with Trump. To cut Medicare and Social Security, they'll do whatever they have to do. And Bernie is saying the Democrats need to be better fighters, and it's important what you fight for too. It shouldn't just be neoliberal centrism. It has to be a progressive message like Bernie is. Except the problem is the Democrats don't fight on anything. They basically they come to like the neoliberal like compromises, because like they're trying to meet the Republicans halfway a lot of the time. Like even with Obamacare like was Obama was fighting for the public option at first, and then they went to the um, what Obamacare is, the individual mandate system. So, and Warren also echoed Bernie's idea, and it was like directed at John Delaney, saying like she doesn't know why people run on saying what we shouldn't fight for. And then I think that raises a good point, just because someone like John Delaney, like, is he really that dumb to think he could win this race? It's possible. It's possible that he's really so inside his own little bubble, and he thinks he has a chance, and he thinks that he can like appeal to the American people and like the Democratic base, which is much more to the left now. But I suppose it's possible he thinks that he can win, but I think he's basically just there to try and save face for the healthcare industry, for that corporate elite side. He's trying to fight for that argument as much as he can because he feels like it's under siege. So he wants to, at the very least, he's going to try and like muddy the waters with Medicare for all. Um, but Pete Buttigieg made a pretty good point. I think he usually can come out of these debates and at least make one or two pretty good points. And he said, we shouldn't worry if the Republicans call us socialists, because if we do a far left agenda, they'll call us socialists. If we do, what Obama did, like center politics, then we'll be called socialists too. Um, so yeah, I'm not for falling for that bait and letting the right define who we are. And it's like, yeah, like socialism is not a scary word anymore to a lot of people. People are more informed now, and there's a shift going on because of what Bernie Sanders did. So there's a deeper understanding now, and it's not like, people understand that it's not like communism. We were talking about basic social democracy, excuse me, which is what's in every other modern country. So let's get to the third debate. Bernie Sanders made his case again for healthcare, and this is interesting to me because it seems like they're always trying to get Bernie on healthcare. They feel like they can like trip him up on healthcare, and it seems to me like they fail every time, and like everyone else looks like they're flailing around, like trying to, I don't know, like trying to outwonk Bernie or something, or try and propose their idea and make it better, but they all fall flat on their face to me. And honestly, this is kind of a gift then from the corporate media then. Like, I don't know, like, do they think that this is a good strategy? Because it's attacking Bernie on probably one of his strongest topics. He's really solid on healthcare. And I think people are on his side largely. That shift was because of him. And so people are seeing the writing on the wall, and they know that he's the real deal. So, again, like it's good for him if they're going to keep trying to attack him there, because I think it's just going to make him stronger. Um, this was interesting though because Bernie was talking to Joe Biden about cancer. He was saying basically, the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country is medical debt, and people get diagnosed with a horrible illness like cancer, and Bernie is saying we should have a system where those people don't go bankrupt. That's through taxpayer money, and you don't have to, be burdened with tons of debt and then maybe even burden your children with that debt. I mean, who knows what happens there? But then Meghan McCain, petulant child that she is, goes on Twitter and she's like, "Don't lecture Joe Biden about cancer, okay? My father, he had cancer, okay? So, because we suffered, everyone else should basically have to suffer." Like this is so ridiculous. It's as if they have no idea what goes on outside their own wealthy circles. Because, I hate to say it, like, but Joe Biden, people like Meghan McCain, like they're rich people. If they get sick, it's a horrible tragedy when you get sick. Yes, but they're not. Joe Biden's able to run for president. Meghan McCain's on The View. So not everyone is in their position. Not everyone has as much money as they do, and they're going to be burdened with debt. Like I just said, the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country is medical debt. So it's such a dumb takeaway to me too. It's like, oh, my father or whatever suffered from cancer. So I think that people who do get cancer, they should be burdened with debt. Even though I wasn't necessarily in that circumstance, because I was in a more privileged circumstance, people should have to suffer the consequences. Through debt. Just ridiculous. And and they were ganging up on Bernie. I mean, like there was a real effort. That's why I say to like they're trying to trip him up from the moderators and from the candidates. Pete Buttigieg said the problem with Bernie's damn bill is that it doesn't trust the American people, and that just sounds like a attempt at like kind of like a witty punchline. Like I don't get what that's supposed to mean because 70% of the country is for Medicare for all, and it's probably a bigger percentage amongst Democrats. So people act like they're all for universal coverage and like each plan is trying to get to that goal. Well, like even if that's true, like the fact of the matter is the way you're going to go about doing that is going to matter. If you're going to have like some kind of buy-in, some kind of public option, that's not Medicare for all. It wouldn't be universal coverage. So, you know, when people talk about like their plans, like they're trying to outwonk Bernie and say like I can actually pay for my plan, yada yada yada. But there's no guarantee that anything will pass. Is the thing is that you have to fight for what your best case scenario is because you're going to go get up against the Republicans, and you know at some point you're going to have to unless you get like I don't know like no Republicans in Congress or something, you're going to have a certain number of Republicans and probably will have to get certain amount of votes. But maybe not, because look, Obamacare passed without no Republicans voted for Obamacare. So it could be conceivable that you have only Democrats vote for Medicare for all. I don't know. But the point being, just argue from the position that you want. Because if you're going into this like thinking like, oh, we have to reason with the Republicans, no, it's not going to work that way. You're going to end up lowering your own position. And if you're going into this with your compromised position already, it's just going to be even more watered down neoliberal garbage, which is what we've had for the past couple decades. So I just don't get what that means. Don't trust the American people with Medicare for all. It's like he's doing what the people want. Kamala Harris had a little gimmicky address to Trump, himself, like speaking to the camera. And to me, it was just a ploy for attention. And, people might think it's petty or I don't know, it's like a cheap shot at Kamala Harris. I think, though, the problem is it just felt opportunistic. And the problem for me was that it came off more as petty. Like she had this like witty punchline at the end, like now you can go back to watching Fox News. Oh yeah, big applause line. But there's a lot of problems with that to me. It just like it further polarizes people like into their own bubbles, like the liberal bubble and the conservative bubble. Um, it's like she's trying to get down into the mud to try and fight Trump and like be like I'm gonna be I don't know like I'm gonna be edgy too like Trump. But it's like Bernie can do that. He can be edgy and fight Trump, but that's because he's fighting for real policies. Kamala is not fighting for anything real. She just co-ops progressive ideas basically, and so then behind the scenes, it's like she'll be like, "I'm all for Bernie. Give Bernie credit," but then after the debate, she'll be like, I actually don't stand with his Medicare for all plan. I think it's like too far left, and like I would involve the private insurance industry." So it's like she's speaking out of both sides of her mouth basically. And she knows like in these debate setups, it's like she has to appear more left. But my other big problem, yeah, is like with this address that she did. It's like it's lowering our politics to this like clown show reality TV game. It's it just makes it more about like the actual personal like attacks, and you're not keeping the focus on policy, and I don't like that. So Kamala Harris, she's just trying to get attention, and it's because look, she's not making, I guess, the run for popularity as people thought she was. Like to me, the only people who really have a solid chance in terms of the numbers right now is Bernie, Warren, and Biden. It's too early to tell, sure, but in terms of what is likely to happen now, yeah, those are your three choices in my view. Um, so Warren had some strong moments. I feel like, like I say, like she's closer to Bernie in the sense that she'll actually try to address the corruption because like no one else ever talks about it except those two. That she'll at least try to say like we'll get at the corruption. Um, but my overall analysis of her is that I believe what she says when she says she wants to help the country for the better. She gave a really nice kind of speech about her background. Becoming a public school teacher, then going to law school, so on. So I believe that she's sincere about that. But I think that she thinks her best strategy is basically to rub shoulders with the elite. She's already meeting with Hillary, and this is early in the race now. So I feel like this is such a out of step move to me. It just I don't know why you should be talking to Hillary in the first place, but if you are going to, it's like why would you do it now? And she said in a TYT interview, this was a couple months ago, but she says like if she got the nomination, it's all hands on deck. So basically, all corporate donations are welcome. Um, I think that's a bad sign to me. I think it's gonna signal if she gets the nomination that she's gonna basically do what Hillary did and kind of run back to the right, really, yeah, because like that's the old campaign playbook, if you will. It's like you're trying to out left people in the primary, and then you run to the right in the general. So I think she's basically drunk the Kool Aid, and she's one foot in the progressive camp, one in the establishment camp. Except that foot in the establishment camp, I think, is what's dictating her strategy ultimately, and that's not good. So Jake Tapper, this was in the second debate, asked her if by saying she was a capitalist to her bones, she was trying to differentiate herself, from Sanders. And I think she might do that in the future, but it would be a poor strategy. I mean, I think she kind of is going to do that. Like, she feels like she has the left base kind of unlocked just because she's similar enough to Bernie. And so she's trying to expand her base, if you will. But she's expanding her base where she's already popular, which is pretty funny. Like she's much more popular according to the polls with like more well-educated liberals, like in white liberals, like people in higher education. Basically, she's really popular with. So I think she might do that, but Bernie has to be the one to differentiate himself, I think. And he said in advice interviews like there will be a time and place for that. We'll see. I guess it's probably going to be farther down the line when it's like closer to it's like down to Bernie versus Warren and Biden maybe. But otherwise, he's not going to motivate people enough to vote for him. He needs to show that he is more to the left, and you can do a lot of examples with this. Like he pointed out, I think in the third debate that he was the only one to vote against every Trump military budget. So I think there'll be a point where he's going to say, yeah, Elizabeth Warren, you voted for these Trump military budgets and I didn't, as Bernie Sanders. Yes. So I think, yeah, there's a time and place for that, as Bernie said. So then another highlight was Beto said, hell yes, we're taking your AR-15. Afterwards, a Texas representative threatened him online and saying, my AR is ready for you. So on the issue of guns, I've talked about before, like I don't really favor bans. I think it's just because it doesn't get at the root of the problem. It's like I don't know how you could possibly go about getting every AR-15 out of every house in this country. I mean, so my point being, there's so many guns laying around. Like there's gonna be guns around, and bad people will have guns, and less good people, less good law-abiding citizens will have guns. As a result of a policy like this. So I believe in universal background checks. We need stricter standards on guns. I totally agree with that. And it's like I wonder. It's like I don't know if this is too out there, but like with this guy like threatening Beto like this, And he's like, yeah, you could argue, is like, is it a threat or not? I think it is pretty much a threat. He's saying like, yeah, come and get it, from my cold dead hands, as Charlton Heston would say with the NRA. But I wonder. There's got to be a lot of people out there who like really are going to be over the top about this, and it's like this is like almost real Civil War 2.0 territory. Like if someone's going to actually enact a policy and like try and take away your AR-15, are there going to be enough? I mean, not enough for maybe a full-fledged war, but there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be very upset and like maybe take to the streets or do some violence or just I don't know. Like, and I'm not saying, this is the ironic part is that like the conservatives are all like they're the law and order party, but if they pass a law that bans the AR-15, which by the way, they're not banning guns because you're just banning this particular gun. This is not unconstitutional to ban an AR-15. I completely understand that. But so if you pass a law that says you're going to ban an AR-15, then all of a sudden they aren't the law and order party, and it's like, the government is tyrannical, and now they're gonna and start Civil War 2.0. Yeah. So I think I don't know if it's like a really significant number of people that feel that way, but it's enough to scare people, to scare me at least. So you had some protesters yell during Biden's closing address. I didn't really look into what that was all about. But yeah, it was an interesting moment to say the least. He seemed like he was flailing around all night. The big thing was Julian Castro was attacking him on his memory, and this had something to do with Biden's plan, like Medicare buy-in plan. And apparently, people were saying it wasn't necessarily a fair attack that Castro was making. It wasn't quite what Biden was saying. I don't know. My interpretation of it was like he's saying if you're too poor under his plan, you'll qualify under Medicaid. That's what he said after Castro made the memory remark. And that's what we have now because under Obamacare, like we had the Medicaid expansion, except if you were Republican governor and refused to expand it, if you had a Republican state legislature and it like wouldn't even pass whatever, it's not gonna. The people have died because of that because Medicaid wasn't expanded in certain right wing controlled states. Excuse me. So again, it's like Biden has no idea what's been going on, and it's like they're running on the exact same thing, the exact same ideas that we've been doing, that they've been doing, I should say, like the Obama administration. He's acting like it's never like Obamacare has been kind of dismantled at this point, piece by piece. So he just thinks that like these half-baked ideas are gonna survive, and it's ridiculous to think that because of course, yeah, if someone, whoever the next Republican president is, could feasibly try and repeal Medicare for all. But the problem with that is if you were to implement Medicare for all in a strong way, I think it would pretty easily be successful under like a 4-year period like what Sanders is talking about. It's going to be popular is the problem. So taking that away from people, people won't take to that as easily, I think. And Obamacare was fairly popular too, and people liked it. But anyways, I'm getting off in the weeds here. The thing with Biden is like, yeah, like whether the memory thing was, whether that was exactly the right thing, in terms of like Biden misstepped or not, he didn't come off strong. Is the thing, and he's he may have had like the best performance out of the 3 debates last night, but it's not saying much. It's not just that he misspeaks the thing, because everyone misspeaks, but he can like every other word he's saying is a misspeak, and like he has no idea like what noun he's referring to. So it's like, how can you even string a coherent sentence together? I honestly think he may not be fit for doing this, and it's like this is that early on, and he's like exhausted. It seems like going up against all these people. He's not going to be very good going up against Trump either, because Trump, he's he speaks at like a very basic level. It's like very brief and to the point. It's like there's hardly any nuance in what he says whatsoever. But that might be to his benefit, because him up on stage, if Biden, oh my God, is the nominee, like Biden's gonna be rambling like crazy, and we're gonna have no idea what's going on. It's honestly, it's crazy to think if that were to happen. I don't think it will though. I think Biden's gonna fizzle out, because it's already looking like he's a flop already. So it's just, I don't see it getting that much better. Um, and yet MSNBC, they, in particularly Morning Joe, they seem to think Biden is the best case scenario for the Democrats. And they put together these ridiculous arguments, and it's like they're saying they're trying to piece it together based on the right wing voters that are against Trump now. They want someone that's like they think that Biden would be more stability, so it's like they wouldn't vote for Biden, but they won't feel motivated to vote for Trump. And like the idea is, if it was a socialist, then maybe they'll be motivated to go vote for Trump. But like it's absurd, because when you look at the numbers, look at Sanders to Trump voters, and it's in all the swing states that we need to win. So it's just based on nothing. These people in corporate media, like they're so insulated and in their own bubbles, and it is coming across more than ever now. It seems to me. Um, it comes across in the questions too. I mean, like this was a problem with the second debate, which was CNN, and then last night was ABC. It's countless examples, but last night, excuse me, Jorge Ramos actually tried to compare Bernie to Maduro, and he was like, "Is your democratic socialism like Maduro?" Like, this is absurd. We know what Bernie's advocated for, and he's people have to understand, like, they know the answers to these questions. The people asking the questions, the moderators, they understand that. I mean, are they really that dumb, and they can't like do a Google search and understand the differences in their ideologies? Because Bernie, he's not. He's like a social democrat, like any other European country, basically, or like Canada. He's advocating for very really modest reforms, honestly, in like trying to get a basic minimum standard of human decency in this country, with healthcare, with free universal higher education, uh, universal daycare, which is what a lot of other countries have too. So that question is a smear, and I'm not. I hesitate to say it's like, yeah, the smoke filled back room, and they're like really trying to rig the scale, rig things against Bernie. But I really feel like that is meant to be a smear question, that because whatever Bernie says, they're putting the idea in people's heads that Bernie is like he's not Maduro, but he's like close enough to be compared to Maduro. So it's like, oh, is he not legitimate? Is he too far out there compared to the other candidates? I think a lot of people see through this act for sure, but there's other people that aren't as informed. So, it's clearly this bias against Bernie, and they're trying to make him look like he's so radical, but he's not actually. When you look at the arc of history, I mean, look, we had FDR in the 30s propose an economic bill of rights. He proposed basically healthcare as a right and other economic rights. He was a socialist, basically. I mean, maybe not like full on socialist, maybe more of a democratic socialist, but to act like socialism is devoid of anything in America, to act like it has nothing to do with America is untrue. And it comes from decades of propaganda, I feel like. Things have been too corporatized now, and so people the spectrum has been shifted too far to the right, and that's within like the mainstream discourse that you see on TV. But a lot of people, I think, are getting their news more online now, and if they do watch TV, I think they know to be skeptical. So things are changing, and I think that maybe the corporate media is a little too out of. They're not. And they're in their own bubble. I mean, like to see that people don't uh, trust what's going on, basically.